Hey guys, it's David, and this is for Module 1, Knowing Yourself. And I'm going to have to tell you right now, Morgan Spurlock is now my hero because of what he's done with the greatest movie ever sold. Because he's basically validating what I often don't have the courage to do, even though I believe it, I guess because I feel like I'm fighting against the masses. And the masses, even though they're never right about anything, they tend to dictate, what works and what doesn't work in terms of financial success. And I always think, if you go too much against that, you can't win, and people will, I guess I have a tough time with criticism, even though, and it's kind of sad, right? I mean, even though I know I'm right about a lot of things, it's sometimes challenging to get those ideas out there because the status quo is so powerful, and sometimes I just don't have the guts to go against the status quo. But anyway, Morgan Spurlock, what he has done is figure out how to basically market a movie based entirely on product placement. And what he did was he went to all of the ad agencies and he asked them if they would participate, try and sell their clients, which are mainly major brands, on sponsoring this movie. But what he said was, you won't have control over the product placement. And I guess the movie is about product placement and marketing and branding. But he just said, how I present your product, it's not like I'm going to describe it like this. Thanks for sponsoring my movie. Now I'm going to tell you how bad Coca-Cola is for you. It's not that. It's just that it's going to appear wherever he chooses, and I guess they just won't have control over how it's used. So because everything's fear based, okay? Like when you try and get somebody to do something, particularly in business, most people don't think about the benefits of it. They think about, is this going to risk my job? Okay? That's what they think. And it's a terrible way to think if you actually want any innovation to take place. So what he went away from, he said, okay, every single major ad agency said no to him. So then he thought, you know what? I'm going to go to the clients themselves. And he went to all these companies and he said, hey, you know what? Maybe your agencies aren't necessarily acting in your best interests, because they are just thinking, well, what if this blows up? Like if we don't know what he's going to say about our client's brand and he says something they don't like, they're going to blame us, which is definitely true. They will blame them. So they're probably smart for not suggesting it, because frankly, they wouldn't have any control themselves. So they couldn't really take credit if it did well, and they're going to take the blame if it does badly. So he went to these brands and he said, hey, what about this? And he showed an example for band Roll-On, and they're kind of like, well, you know what? We're kind of a smaller brand. And even though it was kind of funny to them, they thought, yeah, you know what? This is going to get us in front of a lot of people. We're kind of interested. So I guess out of 500 companies he met with, 17 of them signed on because they recognized that maybe going against the grain and taking risks is actually how you separate yourself from everyone else. And that is so in line with what I'm telling you guys to do in your acting. Don't copy everyone else, because all of these companies and people that are telling you to do this and do that don't have your best interests at heart. What they have at heart is their best interests. Like imagine if I told you guys you should be doing some kind of mailing, and I was going to be the one charging you for the mailing. Well, obviously then I have a conflict of interest, and all these companies have conflicts of interest, and the sooner you guys recognize that, the better. So I hear a lot of people in the forum saying, oh yeah, I'm doing this with my headshot and I'm doing that, and that's because it's been driven into your head that that's what you need to do. But why don't you think about what people are telling you not to do? And why are they telling you not to do it? They're telling you not to do it because they don't get any benefit out of it. Morgan's like, why not take something on that no one else will be doing? Maybe you don't have control of it, but maybe that's a good thing, because your brand will be seen in a light that you have never even thought of. And even if it's in a scene where there's some negativity, it's still going to be something that's different and it's going to be memorable. So anyway, he got 17 brands on board, and I'm still watching this documentary, so I'll probably have some more added comments. But guys, take risks. That's the only way you can separate yourself from the herd. Unless you're Procter & Gamble and you have millions of dollars to spend reinforcing a brand, you know, whether the products are good or not, who knows? Like people say, oh, Tide's better than brand B. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. But does anyone really do the side-by-side tests? It's like, sure, maybe the Sony television is better by 20% than the Vizio. But unless you bring both televisions home, you'll never know, because you're going to turn on the Vizio and it's going to look amazing and you'll never know. Like, that's what's so funny in stores. They put all these TVs beside each other. And then you can see, oh yeah, the Sony is nicer. It's, 50% more money. But it is a nicer picture, and you don't want to walk out with the one that's not as nice as the Sony. But when you get home, you'll never know. You'll never know in a million years. You'll be so happy with the lower brand, the Vizio, because you know what? You're going to get a new TV in 2 years anyway. It's the same with cars. Guys, think about all the things you buy. 90% of the stuff you buy sits in a closet or in the garage or wherever 99% of the time, okay? With the stacks of clothing and stuff you've got hanging around in your drawers. Trust me, I know, because I'm thinking about it myself. All this stuff adds so little value to your life because 99% of the time you're not using it. I mean, to be honest, my goal in life is to create a huge sort of sharing depot where we can share things so you don't have to buy something every time, because it's such a waste and drag on our planet that we all have to own, all of this sporting equipment, and we all have to own all these cars and all of these things that we own that we never use. The basics we need are probably a refrigerator, a bed, a place to sit, and I don't know, maybe a computer or something. Most of the other stuff is just sitting around. You're just staring at it going, oh, yeah, it's sitting there doing nothing. And then you complain you have clutter. So anyway, guys, take risks. Risks are what separates the winners from the losers. And even Procter & Gamble, when they started out, they had to take a risk because they entered into a category that didn't exist, or, that was kind of probably mom and pop, and they thought, well, what if we really just spend a lot of money on marketing? Maybe that'll work. They didn't know. It could have failed, but they took the chance. And now they look like the status quo because everyone has copied them. But, they're the leaders, and that's why they are so successful. So don't copy Procter & Gamble, because then you're just a Procter & Gamble wannabe. Come up with your own solutions to things, because your own solutions are what's going to separate you and get people to notice you. You don't want to be, oh yeah, he's a lot like this guy, or she's a lot like this girl. You want to be the person, and the reaction is when you finish your scene to be like, man, I wrote this and I never even saw it that way. So that's what you need to do. I mean, I've told this story in another piece, but I'll tell it quickly again. And we had a professional writer come in who wrote a few major feature films, and we all auditioned for this guy for the same part, and all the guys did in the class. And this is just a cold reading class or whatever. And I pride myself on, I understand the writing, I understood what was happening, and I can do the accents. It was kind of a New York doorman role, right? So I was playing the New York doorman. Hey, how you doing? And I kind of made it what I thought a New York doorman would be. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I thought, man. That was really good. And then this guy comes in, JR, and he's just so quirky. I don't think he could imitate anything if he wanted to, but he's so unique and so kind of like, he's like a cartoon character almost, like he's like a little chipmunk or something of a person. And he does it. And of course he can't do tough New York doorman. He's like, oh, hey, how are you? Like that. And I mean, that's literally how he talks. And he's hilarious. Anyway, he does it totally his style. And this writer, who's written, several blockbuster films, says, you know what? That is totally not the way I wrote this, but you were so convincing the way you did it, I would consider rethinking the entire casting process and hiring you because of how unique you were. And that's what it's all about, guys. Look at every single movie star that isn't like Tom Cruise. Like, look at, the King of Queens guy. I can't think of his name offhand. Ray Romano. All these guys, schlubby, good for nothing, cracker snacking, overweight guys. What makes them unique and makes you want to watch them is because of, they don't care. They are showing you every raw nerve that they have and making fun of themselves. They're like, yeah, I know I'm fat and I know I'm always eating when I shouldn't be. And instead of hating myself for it, I'm going to exploit it because I know that there's a lot of people like that. In fact, everybody's like that. Even the people that are great dieters, they still have to restrain themselves for the most part from eating ice cream and chips between meals. These are just natural tendencies we have as people. When we have, you give us an inch and we take a mile. So guys, just be unique. Be unique. That's all you got to be is yourself. And you don't have to try being extra unique. Just be yourself. All the things you think are crazy and that you need therapy for, that's what makes you interesting. Okay? This is why Woody Allen is just so successful. Okay? The guy's the most quirky, self-conscious. I mean, can anybody be more self-conscious than Woody Allen? I mean, he constantly talks about himself in his movies. It's just a constant self-commentary in his dialogue. Oh my God, I thought that this is, instead of taking action, which is what most heroes do, his heroes are constantly just observing themselves. That's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And it's the kind of stuff, that I want to kick myself in the head. I wish I was more flexible because I'd kick myself in the head because I'm always stopping myself and listening to other people saying, oh, I think it should be more like this or it should be more like that. It's who cares what you think? This is me. And, take it or leave it. I mean, it's either going to do well or it's not. And it takes a while to find an audience. And I think the way you find the audience is not being less of yourself. It's just finding more and more of yourself. And eventually, when you are completely truthful, not just with who you think you want to be, when you're completely truthful, letting go and being as you would be without thinking about it, that's when you're going to find your audience, okay? The truth. Not the truth in the piece, the truth in you. So let it through. Let it out. All right, guys. There's going to be more soon.